Welcome back, folks. I'm Frizz, and today I'd like to take some time to talk about loot in Pathfinder 2e. To be more specific, I want to talk about what makes loot actually good, and the sort of stuff that I tend to keep my eye out for whenever I'm looking for something for one of my characters. While what each PC will want is always going to be variable, there are going to be general trends as to what PCs in general want, and being able to buy those items or finding them while adventuring is sure to be satisfying. Alright, so let's get the basics out of the way first. Fundamental runes are good, and every PC should at least get the armor runes. It's not going to be nearly as important for a wizard to get a striking rune immediately at level 4 when you compare to a fighter, but people aren't joking when they say that Pathfinder 2e assumes that you're going to be getting the fundamental runes about as quickly as you can. So yeah, they are the most obviously good equipment in the game for a reason. Something that isn't quite as obvious is skill boosting items. There are a variety of different magical items in the game that give item bonuses to different skills, and while skill items aren't quite as vital as fundamental runes, for some characters they are about as important. The math of the system assumes that if characters will be trying to get their skills to be super reliable in stressful situations like a combat, they're probably going to have to get these items. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that if you're playing a character that often uses skills in combats, like, say, a swashbuckler, getting skill boosting items is about as important as getting your fundamental runes. While we're still talking about super basic items, the least obvious type of super basic item is spellcasting items like wands, scrolls, and staves. I say that these are less obvious, since they aren't even included in the automatic bonus progression, which just makes a lot of the other items that I've already talked about automatic parts of leveling up. But really, spellcasting items are huge. Like, really, the biggest boon of spellcasting is the sheer versatility that it provides you, and having access to spellcasting items is the best way for spellcasters to be able to leverage that. A good staff can effectively give you an extra high-level spell slot or tons of little ones every day, and wands are fantastic for spells that you know you're going to want to cast every day, or for spells that you know don't need to be heightened to be super effective, like, say, Fear. Finally, scrolls are ideal for super situational spells that are incredibly effective for that specific situation, because now you don't need to prepare that in a spell slot every day. Basically, don't deny access to spellcasting items to your spellcasters, just as you shouldn't deny access to striking weapons to your martial characters. Now that we're done with the general stuff, we can start talking about the more specific stuff. Every character is going to want something different, but I personally like items that aren't just good for a couple of levels. For example, a lot of items in the game rely on static spell attack rolls or saving throw DCs, which means that they can very quickly become redundant. Meanwhile, an item like an insistent door knocker will always let you make a door through most walls, regardless of what level you're at compared to the item. Going back to spellcasters though, spell hearts are another amazing type of item that I really can't recommend enough to spellcasters, although martial characters can also get some stuff from them. They give you access to a wide variety of heightening cantrips, and also other spells, although those other spells don't scale and automatically heighten like the cantrips, but they're still really good. Of course, the obvious use for spell hearts, now that the treasure vault is out, is that every caster can get access to Electric Arc, but they still give a great way to be able to customize your available cantrips throughout a day. Just put a bunch of spell hearts onto different daggers and draw them depending on which one you want. Cantrips are still good for martial characters, but since they can't actually cast spells from them, they don't get the majority of the use of the item. Consumables are also important, and while I personally don't buy a lot of them, they are still really important to, find and loot, or to simply buy on your own. I personally don't buy a lot of them, because I'm very stingy with my gold normally, and I like getting permanent upgrades, but they are really useful for in particular, covering weaknesses. Like, let's say that you don't have a way to stop yourself from falling to your death. So, buying a single Snapleaf Talisman can basically protect you from any lethal fall, and it really isn't expensive. Now, finally, probably the most important thing to remember is that there aren't any real requirements for what you have to spend your money on. 2e is a really well-balanced system, and so long as you get your fundamental runes and spellcasting items as a spellcaster, you're gonna do great. While some items might have a longer shelf life over the course of a campaign, that doesn't mean that those are the only ones you should use or anything. 2e has an amazing amount of items in the game. Like, honestly, it's silly. And I really do encourage you to try them all out, because you don't have to buy any of them. You can buy what fits your character and still work just fine. Thanks for watching. Equipment may or may not be on my mind recently because of the treasure vault just coming out. Could you tell? Anyway, what do you guys think about loot, and is there a particular item that you think of that is underrated or just not talked about very much? Let me know in a comment down below, and subscribe or something while you're down there. And regardless, until I see you next, live a wonderful life.